Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hi, you are very welcome. This is Reading the Past and I'm Dr. Cat, and as you can see we are back in my car, which can mean only one thing. It's time for another road trip. Today I am in a very dark car park trying to use the light in my car in Cambridge, and I'm going to be meeting my lovely friend to talk about her new book, which is all about Margaret Beaufort. So why have I come to Cambridge? What's that got to do with Margaret Beaufort? I guess we're going to have to go and find out. Let's go. Welcome, Lauren. You've met Lauren Johnson on this channel before. She sat down and talked to me about confinement, but now we're actually in person.
IRL.
Weird, right? They've let us meet up in person. And where are we today and why?
We are. Thank you for asking, Kat. We are in the beautiful, cosy and extremely friendly Christ College, Cambridge, which was founded by my main lady, Margaret Beaufort.
And we are here to talk about Margaret Beaufort. Why do people found colleges in universities? What's the point of that?
In the Middle Ages, the main reason is a sort of reciprocal idea that, as we know, there's heaven, there's hell. Most of the medieval people of Western Europe were Christian, and they believed that in order to get to heaven as quickly as possible without ending up in hell and without spending too much time in purgatory, you had to do good deeds. So that will raise you up, particularly because anyone who is benefiting from your good deeds is going to be praying for you. God and all the saints will be listening, obviously, and so that's going to speed up the process. So if you found a college or a school or an almshouse or a hospital, you are going to be doing a good work and people are going to be praying for you, which means that essentially you're going to get to heaven a little bit quicker.
One thing I have noticed walking around here and also somewhere else is that Margaret's branding is on point. We'll be showing some footage, some photographs. So when you walk through the gates, when you're in this space, you're very clear of who's bankrolled it and of that name recognition. The big Margaret Beaufort symbol is the portcullis, which perhaps we might know better from the Houses of Parliament.
Yes.
But we've been talking about this and we aren't sure how that transition happens. But it is, either way, it is undeniably the Margaret Beaufort portcullis. However, they've repurposed it. So she is right at the heart of government. You have just completed your book on Margaret Beaufort. Before we get into, and the book is amazing, I'm going to talk all about where you can get it. Before we get into it, I just want to flag who Margaret Beaufort is according to historical fiction. Because the Margaret Beaufort that I've encountered in historical fiction, and correct me if you've got a different idea of her from historical fiction, is she is a schemer, she is humorless, she is the world's first tiger mum, she is possibly quite a malevolent force, she is faithless, she's not a particularly pleasant person. She doesn't seem to laugh very much. She's very pious, but in that kind of judgmental way. It's not a good piety. And from reading your book, I learned so many things, but it really challenged that fiction. So who is the Margaret Beaufort that you met through your studies?
I got a bit anxious as you were talking then that she might be listening, because she did come here.
Yeah.
She might just be like, what are you saying about me in my house? As many of her houses actually don't exist anymore. So this is one of the few surviving places we can be in her footsteps. Yeah, the historical fiction version of Margaret is not at all the woman that, firstly, that I've researched for a very long time. Even before I was working on this book, I worked on other 15th century women. And in particular, it is not the Margaret that I found through the surviving documentation. Probably imagery kind of holds up the idea of this pious, slightly scary, bewimpled figure.
Gaunt.
Very gaunt.
Very gaunt.
Yes.
Small, tiny.
Well, she was small and tiny. Lots of the portraiture actually is huge, like 2 meter large portraits of her, which she is partly responsible for creating, and that in itself is a real statement of power. But dressed in black, very nun-like, and I think if anyone maybe has been to a Catholic school and had some scary nuns, they might make some mental associations there. But the thing I think that really bothers me most about the historical fiction portrayal of Margaret is it sits within an existing historiography or literature of Margaret that goes back to the early 1600s, which is a very, Whiggish, one could say, very Protestant-coded version of her. And I think because she's very associated with religious behaviours, and she's kind of held up almost as this arch-Catholic, I think, in some quarters, it's almost like she gets all of this stuff thrown on her because of her Catholicism. So it's superstition. It's something close to witchcraft almost in some renderings of her.
Yeah.
It's weird, it's cruel, it's all of the negative aspects that kind of the Protestant narrative really of a lot of our history is promoting. And I think she gets labelled with that. And then additionally, in recent years, there's been this extra layer of Ricardianism, I think it's fair to say, which is that because there has for 500 years been uncertainty about what happened to the princes in the Tower, because for pretty much that time Richard III has had a pretty bad reputation. In recent times, to rehabilitate Richard, it's like, well, there has to be one bad guy. So if Richard isn't the bad guy, who is? It's Margaret Beaufort. And so she's kind of ended up representing things that are really warped versions of who she really was. And actually just thinking about her and education and why people found colleges, that religious aspect is hugely important, that pious act. But also in Margaret's case specifically, and I think this does distinguish her from some of the previous people who founded colleges, she is genuinely concerned to disseminate learning. Her real rationale for printing works, for promoting printers, which we know she does, for publishing works herself, 50 to 100 volumes of text at a time that she's having sent out to people she knows, preaching in English. The language of the church at this time is Latin, so most people don't understand it. Many people don't read, and they certainly can't read manuscript texts, which are extremely expensive and are kept locked away in monasteries or colleges, indeed. She can access them because she is a rich woman, but she knows that poorer people, less literate people, and actually, interestingly, people from the north of England are much less able to access those things. And so Christ's College sits within a wider promotion that she has of learning. And like, for instance, what I find really interesting is right from the foundation of Christ's College, Margaret stipulated that half the fellows and half the scholars had to come from northern counties. And that was from her own lived experience of having lived in the north, that she saw there was less provision. She may have seen that the north tended to be a little more impoverished in this era of history. So her real concern in setting up places like this was to improve people's lives. It's not just for her, it's not just, I want to get to heaven quicker. It genuinely is about improving the lot of other people.
And that north-south divide that we talk about politically to this day, that people have traced all the way back to the Norman Conquest, Margaret's actually trying to redress the balance. Now, of course, a place at a university is a position of privilege, even if you're coming from a northern county. It's not available to everybody. But to make that distinction, I think, is really interesting. And to be involved in the dissemination of these works. But also the Margaret that came across to me in your amazing book is a Margaret that enjoys lovely things, and a Margaret that actually is very affable, and I think has to be charming. The stuff that she's able to do, the people that she's able to get on side, there's an element to which she must have been fun.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think completely. And especially in her household accounts, we find evidence of that. We find evidence of her joking. Also, there's a document that is written about her court by Henry Parker, who's one of her servants. He writes it sometime later, but he's describing how, before dinner, she would make sure there was a merry, honest tale. There was amusing tales going on. We know that she had her own fools, and the role of fools is obviously something we can unpack at length, because it is a little bit more complicated than, you know, just having a funny jester in the room. But she has a number of them, and she clearly really cares for them, because there's evidence, again, in the household accounts of her looking after people, giving them aqua vita, for instance, one of her fools, which is incredibly expensive and rare medicine at this time, when he's very unwell. And we know that she liked to pun. We can tell it from her books of hours. We can tell it from walking around here.
Tell us about some of those puns. So these are things that are on the achievements of arms and the mottos. Can you unpack some of the puns?
Yeah. Well, as you know, Kat, nothing makes a joke funnier than explaining it.
We all know this. It's a truth universally acknowledged.
And my word, in the 15th century, did they like to explain the jokes?
Well, you're going to have to, because some of these are niche, to be honest.
Okay, I'm going to go for the simplest thing first, which is that her name is Margaret. In French, a language that she was, effectively bilingual in. She was extremely proficient in French. In French, Marguerite, the version of Margaret, it means daisy. So there are daisies in the corners of some of her books of hours. There's also forget-me-nots often, and as we're wandering around this place, we've seen the motto "Souvent je souviens," which has many meanings. Souvent me souviens can mean often I remember you. That can kind of become a sort of forget-me-not. It can also mean I pass beneath. So the fact that it's on
doorways, you're passing beneath it.
And my absolute favourite, which involves a lot of explanation, is the fact that Margaret was known as Altera Securitas by her son Henry VII. And that means my other security, or the other security. It puns on the fact that her symbol is a portcullis, a gateway, so an extra layer of security. It puns on the fact that her blood claim to the throne became his, and that's partly how he was able to claim the throne. And also it puns on the fact, if you think about it a lot, which I have, that this is like a two-door extra security level, a Tudor extra security level. I'm not the only person who thinks that's funny. It might seem it.
She's clearly she's very thoughtful about the way she presents herself and the way she shapes her legacy. One of the things that historical fiction also tells us about her is that from the moment her son Henry is born, she has this borderline delusional,
pathological.
That's a perfect word for it. Yeah, pathological belief that she takes one look at him and goes, the once and future king, that it's this kind of mythic monstrosity, and she will do whatever it takes, including killing princes, to get to where she needs to be. And that every single step that she makes, every marriage she makes, every deal she brokers has always been about getting her son Henry on the throne. Not Richmond, not the Richmond stuff back, on the throne. Is that what you encountered when researching her?
No.
She hasn't got this foolproof plan. At 13, she's not gone, right, here is the 40-step plan to become mother of the king.
No, funnily enough. She definitely is conscious of her status. She is conscious that she has royal blood in her veins. She is conscious, as any other noble would have been. She's conscious of who she's related to, how she's descended from whoever back in history. And other people are also conscious of the fact that the Beauforts have a blood claim to the throne. So it's not out of nowhere, but it really has to be emphasised that throughout most of Margaret's life, certainly the first 40 years of it, there is a king, and for a lot of it there is an heir to the throne, and there are numerous other male rivals, many of them adults, the Duke of York being the most obvious example to that. So yeah, she wouldn't have been thinking, especially in 1457, when there is a 4-year-old heir to Lancaster at that time, oh yeah, this is the one who's going to be king. Also, she is 13 at the time she has her son. Yeah. She is in a position where she is really just trying to survive. She is in the furthest reaches, really, of the British Isles. She's right on the very edge of Wales at that time, which is sort of, I would like to say independent, sort of oppressed territory, really. An area that speaks a different language, with different customs as well, where she doesn't know people. She hasn't got her family around her as far as we know. there is a plague, her husband is already dead.
Yeah.
And I just think that all she is concerned about in that moment is trying to get out of it alive. I do think she was worried for her child, but we kind of have to put a 15th century mindset on this, which is that in the 15th century, it's very normal for a mother or father to hand over their child to be raised by someone else. You literally, you know, the wealthy hand their baby over to other people to feed them as wet nurses, to rock their cradle as rockers. Like, there's an entire household of people. So she's not, you know, giving up her maternal responsibility. But it's really noticeable to me, for instance, that like within 2 months of Henry being born, Margaret leaves him and goes and arranges another marriage. And within a year, she has got remarried. She has moved back to Lincolnshire, where her mother and her half-siblings are still living, where she grew up, where she feels safe.
Yes.
And her son is left at Pembroke Castle.
Yes. And on the one hand, he doesn't belong to her because he's a Tudor. He belongs to his uncle. But on the other hand, you talk about the profound trauma that birth was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous in some ways. We know so little about Margaret's birth, Margaret giving birth to Henry, but we know so much from like reading between what is said. There is an oration at Cambridge, in fact, given by John Fisher, her confessor, in which he's addressing Margaret and her son, and he's like, look at this great big manly king here. Look at this tiny woman next to him. Can you believe that so great a king could come from this tiny woman? And she was even smaller then, you know. And that's not the only time her slightness, her physical smallness is mentioned. I mean, she's only 13 anyway, which by the standards of the time, some women wouldn't even have started menstruating at that point.
Yeah. It was uncommon to begin marital relations with a girl that young. That was not, they might be married that young. It was what he does is certainly not the norm. No. And he's doing it because the marriage being consummated means that he has rights to claim whatever is hers. The fact that she survives this experience, but clearly very badly injured.
Yeah, I think probably physically. We don't know for certain, but it seems very likely given she doesn't have any more children. Yeah. And she has long marriages, one of which certainly seems to be quite happy.
You and I, having been through traumatic births in our own way, and knowing women that have been through it.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. So 2 months after you've given birth, like, I'm not going to go into it too much for the delicate among you, but there is a lot going on physically that you are still having to deal with.
Yeah. And
to then travel 100 miles.
The thought of getting on a horse or in a litter,
which is like a cart, effectively.
It's not got great suspension. The thought of doing that 2 months after birth, that is a person who wants to escape.
Yeah.
That is a person who wants to not think about that anymore. And it's really hard because we aren't supposed to do modern psychoanalysis because they would never have thought of things that way. And it's entirely possible that Margaret came to figure this as a test from God that she passed, that this is in some way divinity for both her and her son. But she may not in that moment have liked him very much.
Yeah.
Looking upon him may have been the source of all of her traumas. Even if she loved him, it's a really complex relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know that today. We know that with postnatal depression, with post-traumatic stress disorders. And these are things that people didn't have the terminology for in the 15th century. So, yeah, I profoundly think that she flees him because he is the site of her trauma. And I think it's really telling that the next time that we know that she goes back to Wales is when he is 11 years old.
So she doesn't potentially see him in person till he's 11.
Yeah.
And then the time after that, he's a teenager and then he's a man.
Yeah, let me do some maths. 14 the next time she sees him, yeah.
And then he leaves.
And then she sees him when he's 28, yeah.
28?
Yeah. I think there is a change, though, in the dynamic of their relationship during those periods of time. I think she remarries, she goes back home, like I say, to her mother, to her maternal family. She has a very kind, very benign husband in Harry Stafford. Yeah. And I think she expects that she's going to have more children. This is my inclination. It is possible that she made an active choice not to have children. We have to consider that. But I think, personally, that she wanted them. And it's only when she starts to realise, okay, I've been married for nearly 10 years, there are no children, maybe Henry Tudor is my child, that at that point she starts to rebuild that relationship, and we see a much closer relationship between Margaret and Henry from that point onwards.
And that kind of pushing to get him his Richmond inheritance back, that proximity to the throne. And ultimately, when it comes down to it, when she goes, right, the step now is you're going to take the throne, when she starts dealing with Elizabeth Woodville, my understanding is that at that point she's like, the only way that you are going to be safe is as king. I think she sees what Richard III is capable of. To be honest, I think she sees what Edward IV is capable of when he kills Clarence. And she's like...
Even before that, I would say. So just to really quickly explain, because I don't know, maybe everyone here knows about wardship, but Margaret and her son both have had the position of having a dead father, which means they become a ward of the king, whoever is in power at that time, who can decide who they marry, who they are in the physical possession of, etc. Margaret is kept close to her mother, Henry is not. And I think that's, again, quite revealing. But because of this situation, all of Henry's estates are given out to other people, including to the Duke of Clarence.
Yes.
So he has the earldom of Richmond for most of this time, which makes Margaret's situation quite tricky, I think, because the Duke of Clarence is the brother of the king. For quite a long time he's in power, then he rebels against him for a bit, then he comes back. You know, it's all very messy, very messy.
Yes.
But from the mid-1460s, but definitely 1471 onwards, I think Edward IV is kind of out to get the Lancastrians. It's like he drags them out of sanctuary after the Battle of Tewkesbury and has them killed in a marketplace. He throws the Duke of Exeter overboard, according to rumour, after going on campaign in France. So like little by little, all of these relatives connected to the Lancastrian line are gone. Henry VI is dead by this point, almost certainly murdered, I would argue. His only son is dead, killed in battle. Who is left of the Lancastrian line? Very, very few people who have a blood claim, of which Henry Tudor is almost the only legitimate one available. And Margaret has repeatedly warned him. She warns him to go into exile away from Edward IV, and she tells him to stay away and not come back, not to trust Edward. And it's only in 1482, so ironically just before everything starts to kick off with Richard III, that she finally gets things in place, officially, formally with Edward, so that Henry could come back, be Earl of Richmond again, get his inheritance, get what Margaret feels is his due, marry Elizabeth of York, potentially, Edward's daughter, and then Edward dies, the deal dies with him.
Yes. So
it's almost like Margaret has done everything possible by an alternative means to get Henry back. And then Richard comes in, and his reputation, I think, at the time was probably even worse than Edward IV's. So, yeah, I think she's genuinely afraid for what this will mean for Henry. And I think she is afraid for herself as well, and what will happen to the people that she has responsibilities for.
Yes. Her household, her servants, her fools, her family. Yes. Because we've talked about this previously, that there's, as a noble, as a traitor, sure, you can be beheaded, but there's this sort of idea of a living death.
Yes.
And that's something that Margaret goes through.
Yeah, interestingly. So there's something called attainder, which is, if you are attainted, it's an act of parliament that officially strips the male line in its entirety of every single estate it owns, every bit of land, every right to a church, whatever it might be. Any way you have to make money, gone. The line that is kept safe is the female line. So a dower, for instance, what a widow gets on a husband's death, and a jointure, something that's been jointly settled on a husband and wife, that's it, theoretically. Now, Margaret is not attainted, which is interesting. And the reason she's not attainted is because Richard III puts in place instead a situation where her husband effectively becomes her jailer. And her husband is Thomas Stanley, this powerhouse of the northwest of England, someone that Richard really can't risk angering by, attainting his wife. But probably he realises, well, Stanley likes a bit of money. He'll probably be quite happy to have Margaret's estates for a while. I don't think he's 10 years older than her. He probably won't mind if I start to, promise Margaret's estates to other people for after he's dead. that
Right.
Margaret might well be still alive. She can't have her own servants. She can't write messages officially without Stanley's permission. She is probably removed to the northwest of England to kind of have an eye kept on her. So yeah,
She can't warn her son and protect him in the way she has been. Like this becomes an incredibly dangerous moment.
yeah,
I mean, Game of Thrones doesn't get lots right, but when Cersei talks about in the Game of Thrones you win or you die, when we're in Richard III's reign, for Henry VII, as he becomes, we are in the Game of Thrones now, and he is either going to win or die. Because even if he's in exile, they are sending assassins after him. They are sending people to drag him out of wherever he is and bring him back to England.
yeah, almost to the extent of pulling him out of sanctuary. Like
Yes.
he's only saved because people intervene and are like, no, don't you take people out of our church? Thank you.
Which is such a breach of what's supposed to happen. But the Yorkists, they threaten that a bit. Like they threaten. I mean, Richard does it to Elizabeth Woodville. He threatens that he's going to break sanctuary, which is such a line in the sand. So when it comes to Margaret, when her son becomes king, she then has this new problem. Who is she?
Who is she?
Who is she? Because usually the mother of a king has been the queen
Yeah.
and has that precedence. So she's then got to what? Rewrite precedence?
Yeah, effectively. There has not been a king's mother who is not Queen Dowager, effectively, at this time.
Apart from Edward IV, obviously.
Well, I was about to say, even the Yorkists find a little reach
Yeah.
around because they say Duke of York who should have been,
Yes.
who like legally was king.
Yeah. The rightful king, even though he wasn't. Yeah, they do,
Asterisk.
yeah. Yes. Really long-winded title for her.
Oh my God, it really was. Poor
Yes.
Cecily. So what does Margaret do? Because there could quite easily be questions asked about her loyalties and about her sexual conduct also, which is something that certainly has been levelled at Elizabeth Woodville, Margaret of Anjou, even Cecily Neville.
Yes, the archer.
Yeah, this is how you undermine powerful women.
Yeah.
So I think Margaret has to be really cautious. And I think it is firstly a testament to how much Henry trusts and relies on her very swiftly. I mean, she is the one with the inside knowledge of the English court in a way Henry does not have with anyone else, I would argue,
He's
especially who he
continental.
can trust.
Yeah, he's continental. He has been raised away.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he doesn't have those networks. Any networks he has are through Margaret, pretty much, apart from Jasper Tudor. So it's testament to her place in his, not even affection, I think that's putting it too mildly, like she is a chief advisor to him, I would say, from very early on. And she's given independent powers. She's given what's called the Great Grant of 1487, when she's given a load of estates solely to her. And then in 1499, so actually quite a long time into Henry's reign by this point, I suspect that she probably thought Stanley was going to die. And he just clung on in there. Like, no, I'm not dying. Never. And so she becomes a vowess, which is somewhere between a nun and a widow with a living husband. So hence the images of her where she looks very nun-like, because that is the official vowess garb. But it means Stanley can still be alive. They're not offending him. She still, in fact, seems to have quite a good relationship with him and his family going forward. But she is able finally to have complete independence.
Because the other powerful women who are there at the start of the Tudor reign, they are put, or they resign themselves to a convent life. That's not what she might put on the garb, but she isn't living in a convent, is she?
No, absolutely not. She is absolutely still like right in the heart of power. She becomes basically his regent in the Midlands. She is, she's holding councils. She has her own prison. She's escorting prisoners back and forth. She's writing very firmly worded letters to people about invoking her authority. She's ruling for him, effectively.
She has a bit of a reputation of being the mother-in-law from hell, though. Is that earned, do you think?
I don't think it is. I know this is actually probably one of the more contentious aspects of her. I don't think she is. I think she sees Elizabeth of York as almost a second child. I mean, this is someone she has watched grow up virtually. Margaret moves to court around 1467. So that's when Elizabeth is 1 year old. She becomes more and more involved with the Yorkist establishment. And she has wanted Henry to marry Elizabeth for quite a long time, even before the marriage happens. And I think that Margaret always knew what her position was. I think when you actually read the records, we don't have her, turning up partway through an ambassadorial meeting with Elizabeth going, no, shut up, Elizabeth, I'll talk now. Like, that's not what she does. She is silent. She knows exactly how she should be. She should be behind Elizabeth. She should be to the side of Elizabeth. Like, she knows what she's doing. And there's two big sources that have kind of been held up as this is proof that Margaret's, evil. Oh, she hated Elizabeth. One is some Spanish ambassadors' report, firstly. Don't think the Spanish ambassadors met either of them.
Interesting.
So there's that. I think they're reporting on a sort of maybe an idea at the time, a misogynist trope, let's be realistic, of the mother-in-law.
And pit them against each other.
Yeah.
And is this the Spanish ambassadors who are talking about for the marriage of Catalina, Catherine of Aragon? Is it this time?
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I mean, that goes on for a very long time, but yes.
So they're potentially thinking about the court that Catherine of Aragon might come to and what that might mean for her relationship with the women who would be in her household and looking after her.
I think even more than that, they're looking at who has power. And these Spanish ambassadors are looking to undermine a different Spanish ambassador who is quite close to Elizabeth. So the ones who are criticising Elizabeth and Margaret and saying Elizabeth has no power, well, that immediately impacts the other one who's built a relationship with Elizabeth. So there's so much more going on to those papers than meets the eye. And the other thing is that there's these household accounts from the late 15th century, which have been attributed to Margaret, but only quite a long time after these events, like 200 years after.
Interesting.
Yes.
Good.
By someone who wrote, Margaret Beaufort wrote this, effectively, on it, without it being quite clear why. There is no contemporary evidence that she wrote ordinances, for instance, telling Elizabeth how to give birth or how the king and queen could have sex together or any of the other things that we know there are ordinances for.
Yes.
The only one ordinance which we know Margaret made, because she literally writes her name on it and there are records of it being delivered to her, is after Elizabeth is dead. So, and it is very specifically about court mourning dress, what is appropriate for people to wear in mourning, i.e. mourning the dead queen. So that tells you something very different.
Yeah.
When you look at their interactions throughout their lives, what I get is very much not a partnership. I was about to say partnership, it doesn't go that far, but a collaboration. They work together for their collective interests. And actually, I think it's in many ways quite, I don't want to just use the word misogynist again.
Reductive.
Yes. Thank you. It's quite reductive to say that Elizabeth of York was just this passive figure and Margaret Beaufort was this dragon woman. No. Elizabeth of York, I think, made a conscious choice to be safe, and she had seen what her mother, was criticised for interfering too much, for being too self-interested, and I think Elizabeth of York went, right, I'm not doing that, I'm stepping back. And I will be the ideal queen, as it was in the Middle Ages, who effectively is just a peacemaker, is quiet, and is a mother.
And of course, what she throws her entire weight behind is her children.
Yeah.
And what we see as well with Margaret is that when it comes to protecting those children, I think of her namesake, Margaret Tudor, when she's like, you aren't sending her to Scotland because we can't trust the king in Scotland to not claim his marital rights. She doesn't want this notion of her as somebody, well, I suffered, so everyone else must suffer. No. That's not who she is. She's like, I suffered, so you don't have to. Yeah,
and that's there isn't time, obviously, to go into all of these examples, but there are so many examples of Margaret protecting other women. And that is an aspect of her which, again, has kind of been lost, maybe because we didn't have access to the household accounts or people haven't looked into them as much, or possibly because it was women. But her home in Collyweston becomes this kind of sanctuary almost for women fleeing unhappy marriages, for women fleeing royal anger at a different marriage, for generations of people who are just in need and who go to her to have a place to live and to be looked after. What I got from her household accounts was a real sense of someone who had a profound sense of obligation to other people, who cared about other people, who wasn't necessarily concerned if they had messy private lives. There's a lot of people around her who are having illicit affairs with other people.
Which she would have known about. She's not daft.
Absolutely. And it doesn't seem to be mentioned.
If they need help, they need help.
Yeah.
So she's not this sort of judgmental, as you said, dragon lady in her wimple. She is a person who understands people live lives and things get complex.
Yeah.
When it comes to researching her, what was where were you? What were you doing? What's the process? I mean, obviously, this was many years in the making, so...
It would have been slightly shorter, but there was a plague.
Yes, like Margaret, you lived through a plague and were pregnant during one.
Yeah.
We share this as well in common.
Yes. I was pregnant and alone in Bedford, yes. I think the most interesting research I did was going into archives, which, you know, in an ideal world, I would just have lived in the archives and continued there for years and years and years, which was not possible. But Westminster Abbey, muniments, and particularly St John's College archives in Cambridge have enormous quantities of material connected to Margaret, including her wills, including her household accounts. And the household accounts are like this beautiful, rich seam of stuff where you can work out where she was on which days, who she's with. Is she having, is she having secret butter during Lent when she shouldn't be? Yeah. Who is she sending presents to? And what might that say about patterns of power, especially when we get towards the end of Henry VII's life and we're gearing up for who comes next? Who's going to be in power then? Who is she giving presents to? There's all sorts of tiny details which, when you start to piece them together, reveal her inner life and her feelings and her networks of people. So the household accounts were a huge thing for me. And then also I did try and visit places where she had been. The problem is quite a few of them aren't there anymore.
Right. Yep.
Like a small wall, that sort of it. And I think those, then also some contemporary chronicles, but with the chronicles you kind of have to be a bit cautious with where they are coming from and who they are backing. So yeah, it was a lot of comparing, analysing, criticising, as historians know.
Yeah, because St John's College, where they have some of the archives, that's also founded by Margaret. And I have got some footage of the gatehouse where you are left in no doubt. You're left in no doubt of who is the boss there, because Yale, which is also Margaret. So the Yale, the portcullis, and then the Tudor Rose, like it's front and centre. She's very keen on slapping her badge everywhere, which of course her son and then her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren, they love a symbol. They love iconography. And arguably, you know, she's learning though from the Wars of the Roses, she's learning from the Sons in Splendour and all of these sorts of, but the Tudors take it to a next level. And it starts with Margaret.
Yes.
She's that she's mother of the dynasty, but she's that mother of that Tudor iconography in such a powerful way. I also just want to briefly touch on the fact that when it seems like she's a bit of a turncoat, she makes these loyalties and stuff. The way you lay it out in the book, where you sort of look at this backdrop of the War of the Roses, it's not about her seeking advantage to me. I think it's about her seeking survival. And this is something that reconfigures Margaret in my mind, that she is not somebody who necessarily plots. She is somebody who reacts to terrifying developments. And sometimes she gets it wrong. The stuff that happens, particularly when she's married to Stanley, if she were not married to him, she would be in deep doo-doo.
Yeah, she would absolutely, I think, have been attainted, possibly imprisoned, even more starkly. Yeah, if she had been a widow, I do not doubt for a moment that her estate would have been like attained, will all be damned. Like, I think all of it would have been gone.
Yes. So the things she's doing, they are all about survival.
Yeah, and also survival for the next generation. Like, again, this is a far bigger topic, but the women in this era of history, because they are so sensible of the fact that they are the ones who have the ability to protect the estates and carry them on to the next generation, they have to do it. Like, lots of them also have either dead husbands, absent husbands, exiled husbands or sons. The head of the family, in many cases, becomes a woman, and she is fighting tooth and nail to look after their estates, like by nefarious means if necessary, to pass them on to the next generation, to ensure that the family doesn't just like die out with her. And again, I kind of want to emphasize that in this book, that Margaret is incredible, but she is one among many different women who are doing this at this time. She is not like exceptional in behaving in this way. She is not unusual in putting her son first or the next generation first. Most of the noble women of her time are trying to do it. It's just that Margaret's better.
Yes, and part of that is her skill and her acumen, but part of it is luck.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of what happens, if it had gone a slightly different way, we would be talking about a very, very different history. And the rules are being rewritten. This is a time where a brother who is a king will have his full blood brother executed in secret. The rule book has been torn up. Family ties don't bind. Blood is not a safety, it's a threat. And this is what she's fighting for. And this is what you lay out so beautifully in the book. On that note, where can we get it? When's the versions out? What's happening with the US? I'll put all the links in the description box. What can you remember?
What can I remember? Buy it.
Buy the book.
Hardback is out from the 6th of November in the UK.
Links in the description box.
Also, the ebook will be available at the same time.
Lovely. Also linked.
I was just hoping you'd do that every single time.
Yep.
Yeah. Audiobook, can't remember. I recorded it though, so if you want to hear my voice getting huskier and huskier as I get more and more tired while talking.
What a promise.
Yes, and then getting more excited again. Then please find the audiobook, which is me.
Will be linked in the description box.
And the paperback will be out in about a year. We'll ignore that for now. In March 2026, the American version of the book will be out.
I will leave a link for that too. If it's not available yet, I will push it in later. So if you're watching back, you will find it there. We have to say a massive thank you to Christ College. I'll be leaving links. They have been so hospitable at letting us film various things. They fed us, which was also delightful. And it's been a lovely day. And it's been so nice to meet up in person as well and talk about the fabulous Margaret.
It's been nice to realise Kat had legs.
You've forgotten. All those years we worked together, you thought maybe they'd...
You were wearing a skirt. I hadn't seen them.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. Apart from your book, where can people find you? I will also leave these linked.
Mainly Instagram at history_Lauren and historylauren.co.uk for my website, which will have various upcoming events and things on it.
Because you're taking the book on tour. There'll be talks.
Oh yeah, baby, Wrexham, St Albans,
all the hot spots.
Yeah, plus yes, a podcast, all sorts of things. And I am still available if anyone wants. Give me a call.
Weddings.
Have you got a cathedral or a church that I can talk in?
She will happily do so. Absolutely. And
or a holy well. That would be nice.
Why not? You stand in the well, hover above it, bit of both.
Yep, levitate. Yeah.
Spectacular. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Please do excuse the traffic sounds. I have just parked up on my way out of Cambridge so that I could ask you the following questions. What did you think of my interview with Lauren Johnson? Of the sound of her new book on Margaret Beaufort? What did you think of our look at Christ College, Cambridge? As always, I'm looking forward to reading your conversations in the comments section underneath this video. I'd also love it if you could pop an emoji or a social glyph in the comments too, because that will boost the engagement, get this video shared out more, and hopefully help us to grow our community. I'm thinking we pick some Margaret Beaufort iconography. So a rose, a portcullis, something like that as an emoji. And if you also let me know why you've picked what you've picked with words, because that will keep the algorithm pixies happy. You can also find me elsewhere on social media. I will leave links to the place you can find me on the internet in my description box. Please do follow me over on some or all of those so that we can continue this conversation and start some others. I do hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, please share it with your friends. If not the channel, let some pals know about it. You can tell about this video in particular by hitting the thumbs up. Please do subscribe to the channel, and if you think you have subscribed, have a little check now, just to make sure that YouTube has not mysteriously unsubscribed you against your will. And while you are there, checking, subscribing, maybe resubscribing, please do hit the bell icon beside the subscribe button and then select all in the drop down that will appear, and that way YouTube claims they will tell you when I've next uploaded, but also when I will next be going live, which I do currently once a month to talk about the history news. You send me news articles, we sit down and chat about them. At the moment, these sessions are running for about 2.5 hours. It is a good time. You are not going to want to miss it. We have, of course, got our failsafe. If you head over to my website, it will be linked. It's www.katrinamarchant.com. And if you go to the contact page and put your email address in the box and then hit sign up, That will add you to my list, which will allow me to send you out an email once a week to let you know what I've been up to, but also to send you useful links for my content for the coming days. I hope you're going to have a great day, whatever you're doing, and I look forward to speaking to you all in my next video. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye for now.